welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. I apologize if my voice sounds a little off today. I have seasonal allergies, so I apologize, but it's not just me talking today. I have the fabulous Mr. Mike Murphy on the line with me, and I want to say that Mike is a solo entrepreneur. He's a podcaster of the Mike Murphy Show, which could be found in iTunes and all over the place. So if you guys want to go check that out, you're more than welcome to it. And then we can just carry on from there. But without further ado, I'm going to let Mike take it away.
Hi there, Wayne. How are you?
I am perfectly fine. And now my first question to you is, please explain more about what you do and why you got into podcasting.
Well, I am a podcaster. I'm a teacher. I'm a creative. People kind of have described me as a tech explorer because I do lots of different things. But my main thing, I think I just like to teach people. I like to help people figure things out is sort of my slogan, but it's actually what I like to do the most. So, I teach people.
Yes.
I teach people not only how to podcast. That's one of the things I do, but I really teach people how to create content that we're all trying to do, or that a lot of personal brands are trying to do today. I enjoy the tech side of things. I enjoy kind of helping people figure out, what they should make, where they should put it, and all that. So, content creation is where I really focus on.
So what would be the best aspect of content creation for those starting podcasts?
You mean what would be the most important thing to make, or?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I think, and that's where I like to sort of understand, I like to learn what people are really trying to do, I guess, because it really does matter. There's a lot of people who are kind of overwhelmed or frustrated because they think, they hear all these things and they just think they're supposed to do all of it. And that's not the case, I don't think. So I think you have to really take a step back and say, where do I want to go? What am I good at? What do I want to do kind of thing? And then go from there. So, podcasting is really big right now. And there's a lot of people who think, do I have to set up a podcast? And the fact is, it's not for everybody. It's a lot of work, as you know. And, so I think the big things right now, I think you have to be involved in making content of some kind, and it has to fit your style. You have to do something, whether it's making videos, writing, or podcasting. There's a lot to do. But I think you have to put yourself out there today and make something online, to share things. I think you have to be out there. I'm not sure I answered the question correctly, but.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You just saying get out there and
get out there.
You
can make stuff.
Get out there. Just do it.
You don't have to make everything, and you don't have to feel like you have to make everything, but you have to make something. You can't be so overwhelmed that nothing is getting out. You just have to do stuff.
And you just have to do something, whether it's podcasting or blogging or writing for the Huffington Post. You just have to do something.
I agree. There's not a lot to do. I just, you're pretty much either writing stuff, you're podcasting, you're speaking out loud, or you're, making videos, or, there's not a lot to do. They're all, their own kind of entity, but, there's only so much you can really do. You just have to do it.
Yeah. And there's only so many hours in a day to do it. So
know that.
I want to tell you guys that Mike did a fabulous episode on show notes of all things for his podcast, and someone was asking me what the links of a podcast should be. I said to them, and Mike, you will probably agree with me on this one, that it's really up to them. And I'm like, don't be asking me because I'll tell you something different than the next person. But your episode on show notes was fabulous. I wish I had enough patience to do what you do, but I agree with you. As soon as you get a system down, stick with that system and don't change it.
Yeah. You know, my system is not for everybody. I know that. And, you know, there's a lot of people, I use a script. I write a script, which is, you know, a lot of people will really, you know, makes them cringe when they hear that sometimes, you know. And I make no apologies about it because my style and my show is very dense, I would say, you know, in terms of like the information I give. So I want it to be very dense, you know, and I don't know if I could do that. I know I couldn't do it. Knowing myself, I know that I couldn't be as, you know, as concise as I want to be if I just went off the cuff. And, you know, and I think you have to know that. Like, you have to know your style. You have to know what you want to do. And, but I do think that once you find that, really, really do it over and over again, because podcasting will get the best of you in terms of time and everything else if you're not careful. And, you know, for me, I'm just trying to make things, like, I want to enjoy it. So I want to do things that I can repeat without it really stressing me out, you know, week after week. So, you know, show notes is the big one for people.
Yes, and show notes are easy for me because I have my own system and I've got this system down to my science, but show notes could be the death of your wonderful podcasting. And now I notice a lot of entrepreneurs don't do show notes, or they, which strikes me bananas, or they send people to their website for the show notes, which does not drive me bananas. But what would you say to the entrepreneur that doesn't want to do show notes?
Does not want to do them?
Does not want to do them.
Yeah, I think you have to do some form. I mean, I think you owe it to your listeners, and I think you might be missing out on people who are coming to check you out. You know, like there's people who stumble around your website, and if they have no idea what your show is about, they're not going to hit play necessarily just because, you know, like they want to know, is this going to be worth my time listening to it? And a little bit of outline or, you know, something that would give them a little bit of a, you know, an understanding of what to expect. It goes a long way. So, like, I don't think you have to put a ton into them. You know, there are people who will, you know, really argue that, you know, you have to really go crazy on them with SEO. And I get why they're so valuable. But I also, you know, in my episode, the main, like, one of the lessons I was trying to say is if it's so burdensome to you, then do, you know, the minimum that you have to do something. Don't let it overrule your life, but do something, you know, like, and, you know, everybody can kind of carve out an outline or something that will just give a skimmable version of what your podcast is about, I think is, you know, the minimum that you need to do. So.
Yes. You don't need to be overwhelming yourself with all social media, and you don't need to be overwhelming yourself with detailed to the 10th degree podcast notes, but you at least give your listeners some aspects of what they're listening to.
Well, especially, you know, a lot of people are listening on the road or walking. I mean, I listen to my podcast riding my bike and walking. And if they mention a note or, you know, a resource or something, like, I expect to go back and listen, you know, go check it out on their website, like that link that they were talking about. Like, I expect if they mentioned something that's going to be on their show notes. I just assume that. And if I went back and there was nothing there, I'd be like, I'm not going to go listen again to hear what they, you know, what tool or resource they mentioned, but it sure would have been nice if they had a link in the show notes. So.
Yes. And that's what I was go into SU based off of how you feel about this, based off of the episode that you did all about show notes and the system you used, which I thought was wonderful, and the fact that you have a system and we all have a system that works for us is one thing that we all need to learn. But at the same time, you guys need to do show notes, because how are people going to find you? They're certainly aren't going to find you by iTunes reviews, and new and noteworthy doesn't help, and I won't go into that with Mike. That's a whole another podcast. As Mike goes, yes, new and noteworthy does not help, and people think that they only had 8 weeks being new and noteworthy in iTunes. Oh no, I have because of my podcast story, I landed up in new and noteworthy after 8 weeks. So there's proof in the pudding that the 8 weeks window that someone is splitting off goes. That's not true. You can land up in new and noteworthy as long as your show notes and content is good enough to land up in new and noteworthy. And it's not based on the reviews. It's based on whether Apple likes your podcast or not, because they handpick who gets in new and noteworthy.
Yeah, I think, the bottom line for me is, I think we all do, at least I do, and I know you do, I know most people who are trying to do it online. We're doing so many things. I think if you just do everything kind of the best you can, balance it all out, those things don't stress me out one bit. I was really excited when I, saw myself in iTunes and new and noteworthy, just because it made me proud. It made me, I did something great. But in terms of the real fine details of that, I'm more focused on just trying to get everything done and the best I can, and the rest of it is it's kind of out of your control to worry about it. I think there's not much you can do about it. You just have to kind of, I don't know. To me, everything is just really trying to find a balance of doing a lot of stuff and doing it kind of, I'm really into it. I like things to be good, but yet again, like you said, you can only do so much, and there's only so many hours in a day, and that stuff is not worth worrying or talking or debating about to me, So it's just, you'll get there. I think it's important to be, or, I think it does help to be, have the exposure for sure. But I think people will get there with, just by doing the work and doing, the best they can. So.
Yep. Slow and steady wins the race on that one.
I agree. It's a long haul.
Slow and steady and good podcasting content wins the race on this one.
Yep.
And where can people find you, and where can people get a hold of your podcast? I know it's in iTunes, and I know it's all over the place. I know by now you put it in Android land as well. And when I say Android land, I mean Stitcher. But where can people find you, and how can people get a hold of you if they want to be a member of your one-man band?
I appreciate that. Well, my podcast, the name of it is Mike Murphy Unplugged, and you can find me. My website is mikemurphy.co, not .com, .co. So it's just mikemurphy.co is where my website is, and that's where my podcast kind of is the main part of my website, I would say, in terms of the content that I put on that. I'm on YouTube, and Instagram is where I'm probably the most active. You can find me at Mike Unplugged on Instagram. That's kind of my favorite little spot to hang out. And, my website will direct you to all the other places I go to. So that's you can find me.
You can find Mike, and you can certainly find me via my website. And of course, all that information will be found in the show notes. Yes, I do show notes, and how you guys find show notes is if you click on the podcasting artwork is on Mike's podcast, or my podcast, it will automatically flip over to the show notes, at least in iTunes, and I have tested this out in Stitcher, so that works too, depending on what detail the podcaster goes into on the hosting end of it. And I know there's a lot of schedules. Host, i.e. Lipson, which I use, Podbean, Spreaker. There's a ton of schedulers hosts out there. All you have to do is put the work in and make great content. But before I let Mike go, I'm going to let Kim ask me 2 to 3 questions about anything he wants.
Well, I want to know, first I want to know what your favorite type of music is.
Oh, God. I have been exposed to it all because my dad used to be a sound mixer for Bob Dylan, Neil Diamond, the Pink Floyd. So I think I'm going to say, and this will surprise everyone, I think I'm going to say the Pink Floyd. And that, a specific song is We Don't Need No Education. And that is going to surprise everyone because I am in education, and even though that song is a satire on education, I just think it's so well mastered the way they did that particular song. And so that is one of my favorite bands, and I'm glad that I've been exposed to it all. So I have never been asked what's my favorite music type publicly.
Well, you just went up a notch in my book. That's a great choice.
I did. I probably went up a notch in everyone's book. They know I'm a podcast junkie and also a music junkie as well.
Me too. So, okay, my second question. What do you struggle with most in the technology, like when you're doing stuff online? Is there anything that really gets at you?
Typing those dang show notes because I can't type. So due to my CP, I can't type show notes to save my life. But so I just have my team put it together for me, and then I copy and paste it. But eventually I'm going to have to learn how to type detailed show notes. But that's because I have CT, so I can't do the typing of the show notes myself.
Well, I was wondering that. Has there been accessibility advancements? Is there something that you've looked into that would, is dictation an option? Is that?
Well, dictation on my phone is an option, but I haven't really got into dictation on my laptop. I know there's dictation on my laptop because I used them in the past, but not for show notes necessarily. Not for show notes. And so that's a great thing for me to start researching. Yes, because I need to learn how to eventually do detailed show notes by myself. And even though I have a team right now that helps me with it, I need to start learning how to do detailed show notes by myself. So if anyone knows how to help me with technology out there that can help me answer my questions to do detailed show notes by myself, please shoot me an email, shoot me a tweet, contact me via my website, and we'll make that work.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yes, awesome. Very awesome that you asked me that question. I knew coming out of your mouth that question would be asked. Do you have any more questions for me, or is that it?
I think that's it for me. Those are the two
that's
that
good for you.
That's good for me. Any questions for me?
That's good for you. And so I really appreciate everyone's time this morning, and I just appreciate Mike Murphy Unplugged, a.k.a. MikeMurphy.co, a.k.a. Mike Murphy, coming on my podcast and explaining what he does and explaining his podcast. And I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. This episode is, this podcast, I should say, is sponsored by Grace by Grit. Grace by Grit is a clothing line out of California, and they're giving you a 20% off code in the show notes. I have all my other sponsors, including GoKidder. GoKidder is a Twitter application for the desktop that puts hashtags with your tweets, and that information could be found in the show notes. And again, I thank Mike Murphy for coming on this morning and explaining more of what he does. And I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. Thanks, you guys.